When I first started kind of getting into this, one of the biggest things that I realized as I was going through the CLS was how much paperwork there is, and how, you know, a lot of people just starting out in the industry really might not be something that they're used to, the SOPs and the tracking. And I'm there are a lot of growers out there that are tracking a lot of their data, just, you know, how you know, their yields and things like that. But really having something that can dial it in and give you some data on what you're doing, and also something that works really well with CTLS, and working with a group of professionals that really understand the system and what you're looking at for compliance. It's a huge thing to meet that milestone of getting your license, but what comes afterwards it can be very, very daunting. So I really appreciate Elevated Signals coming out today and presenting some of this information and answering all of your questions. And if you're a micro, we're the ACMLA. We're not just in Alberta. A lot of you folks are going to be selling your products in Alberta. So if you are interested, you're absolutely welcome to sign up to the ACMLA. You know, we are an all-inclusive group and organization. So we're really glad to have you here today. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Kylie. I just wanted to say a few words. I'm Amar, the CEO, and one of the co-founders of Elevated Signals. So we really appreciate the chance to get up here today and share some of our stories with you. We'd love to learn more about you and the membership over time, but we've been working in this industry for 4 years now, and so we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of changes. We've been working with producers of all sizes since we started out. Liam will maybe share some of those stories with you, and we've seen the growing pains. Ourselves being a company growing alongside the industry, there's been a lot of challenges that the industry has faced, and so we've done our best to look at the obstacles that producers have been facing. There's been a lack of tools in the cannabis industry, just being new, and you know, not having a history of software providers really helping automate things and make life easier like you would have in other industries. So we've been trying to do that hard work to make sure that your life is easier, because we're also a fan of the products, or a fan of the industry, and we want to just make your life easier. So we're excited about a lot of the new products coming into the market. We're excited about extraction and beverages, but really the micro cultivators we know they're just going to be doing amazing things, and we want them to just be focused on what they do best. And a lot of the things that have been a struggle in the past is like that it can be automated with software. So we put together a really awesome team of developers that are literally in the trenches there with you guys, with producers today, like figuring out what the challenges are and like knocking them down one day at a time. And so there's still a long way to go. This industry is evolving, but we're very fortunate to be working with awesome producers, several who will probably be on this call today, and just we're excited about what the future holds. But we can't do this without you. So we take your feedback, we put it into our development sprints, and the industry is evolving, your needs are evolving, and all we can do is learn from you and figure out what you need to get through compliance and to eventually optimize your production and automate as much of it as possible. So with that, I'll hand it back over, but thank you very much. And we're here. There's only so much we can cover today, so we hope that we can chat with you after, and anyone that wants to reach out for follow-up meetings, we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amar and Kylie, for those introductions. So to start with, you know, as Amar was saying, we're Elevated Signals. Elevated Signals is a cannabis manufacturing execution software for Canadian licensed producers. And our platform brings together batch inventory, digital record keeping, and aggregates some of the environmental and production data into a central hub for your facility. And really, our electronic batch record keeping helps QA teams and QA professionals quickly compile batch reports for Health Canada during an audit, or for their own internal quality assurance, quality control procedures. So just a shout out to some of the members of the Elevated Signals family. As Amar said, we're extremely proud to be working with some of these great customers and to be learning from them and going on this, understanding the cannabis journey together. I know a few of them are actually in the crowd today, so we'll give a shout out to Earl at Votis.
Hey guys.
So first, what we want to do is, take a moment to define what compliance really means for cannabis producers today. Cannabis compliance in Canada was founded on the MMPR and ACMPR regulations. And under these regulations, cannabis growers focused really primarily on their inventory, additions, destructions, batch movements all throughout their facility. Since the Cannabis Act was passed in 2018, the standard of regulatory compliance has changed and shifted to focus more on quality. So today, producers still need to track their plant and batch inventory, but now they also need to document all of the quality control records that are happening at their facility. So in this presentation, we're going to be referring to quality control records as your sanitization records, your pesticide application records, plant inspection records, destruction records. These are all really summarized and viewed as your quality records. So these records and the inventory events need to be compiled into a master batch record, which provides you guys as the producer and Health Canada inspectors the full manufacturing history of the batch. So we understand, cannabis is a tightly regulated industry, and navigating some of these regulations is very complex. And so producers need to be able to show Health Canada inspectors their GPP quality control records, production batch reports, and audit trails for the different manufacturing components at their facility. This applies not only to the seeds and plants and production batches that you're growing, but also the locations and equipment that you're using in this process. So we've had the privilege of taking part in numerous Health Canada audits, and when inspectors come on site, they're going to be inspecting the plant and batch inventory history. You're going to be looking at your quality records to make sure that you are following the SOPs, the standard operating procedures that you've outlined for your facility, and ultimately make sure that the cannabis that you're growing is in accordance with good production practices. So when we're thinking about documentation, we wanted to show, the production life cycle of cannabis, a cycle that everyone here is extremely familiar with, to really illustrate that from propagation, either from seed to clone, all the way to packaging, there are multiple quality control checkpoints where producers need to document inventory movement or production-related batch work. As well, Health Canada requires, that producers provide specific information about different processing events in the life cycle. So this includes lineage traceability during cloning, verifying plant material destruction and plant inspections during cultivation, vegetation, flowering. When you get to harvest, you need to be properly documenting your wet and dry weights as well. Once the team enters in, or the product enters into processing, producers need to also be able to provide comprehensive work orders that include, material inputs, production outcomes, verification that equipment was properly sanitized and calibrated before use, and even tracking the processing loss during this entire event. So really, there is a lot of, record keeping that needs to be done. Actually, one of the consultants who we work with, Tamara Fowlett, has just recently gone through a Health Canada audit. So Tamara is very active in the microcultivation community, as well as the founder of Sunleaf, which is a Sunleaf Pharmacy, a micro consulting firm, and a former ACMPR grower. She has a background in regulatory compliance from the pharma industry. And what she's described to us and what we've seen is that these audits are extremely detailed. Inspectors can come in and they can examine any batch's history from any point in its production life cycle, as well as any unique processing event that happened to this batch. And what we can see really is the industry best practices are to document all of this information in real time at each of the cultivation and manufacturing steps that we reviewed in the previous slide. This ensures that your record keeping is up to date accurate, and you're ready for surprise inspections, and just really have your internal quality control program dialed in. All of this documentation we've seen leads to master batch records being anywhere from 100 to 250 pages long, covering just from seed to packaging. So how are producers documenting all of this work? Well, really the major issue that we see today is that producers are documenting their quality control records on pen and paper. So we know that micro producers are running lean teams. And when growers are building their businesses, business efficiency is really, top of mind. So we're analyzing the risks and analyzing your team's cash flow. With increased labor costs coming up against, an increasingly competitive market landscape, producers don't have the time or the money to spend on these inefficient, low-value tasks like filing records. When your time is better spent growing, taking care of your plants, and honing your craft, really. We've seen that staff are spending over 2 hours per day on batches filing these records, and that number only increases as the batch numbers increase. We've seen inefficient documentation practices really prevent micro customers from scaling up their cultivation footprint to reaching their full potential, and it is difficult even getting the record-keeping process done for a 500 square foot grow space all the way up to 2,000 square feet. So what are some of the technology solutions used to manage compliance today? So this is a snapshot of what we see as a disconnected technology software stack that producers are using and are still currently using to manage their facility operations. So there's 4 main components in this software stack. We have our seed to sale software, our quality management software, a reporting tool like Excel, and everyone here, the producer. So seed to sale solutions, they're great at handling inventory. They can do work orders and patient management. And the quality management systems can store document versions and the learning management modules. However, these quality control records are still being done on pen and paper, and it's ultimately up to the producers to spend the time, money, and effort to connect these systems. And managing the system becomes even more difficult as the number of batches scale up, as reporting demands increase for CTS and facility operations become more complex. And as a new business owner and cultivator, it's always important to really think about the risk versus reward of any decisions that you make. Observations in your Health Canada record keeping can put your license in jeopardy. And when you've worked so hard, in the pre-licensing phase to attain that license, trying to hack a system together to save money on an expense when you could risk losing thousands of dollars on your facility doesn't really make too much operational or business sense. So what we've seen the modern solution for cannabis growers adopt is called manufacturing execution software. We've had the opportunity and privilege to develop this platform side by side with existing seed to sale software and DIY systems for record keeping like Google Docs and pen and paper. And really this solution brings together a lot of the best of breeds in both worlds, brings together the inventory management capabilities from seed to sale and the version control capabilities from a QMS, as well as a host of other capabilities into a single centralized platform. Really, manufacturing execution software allows producers to do more with less. All of the quality control records that you'd be filling out, again, the pesticide applications, sanitizations, destructions, they're all digitized and producers can be paperless on the production floor and in their reporting on day one. MES, manufacturing execution software, automatically files all of these quality control records into the master batch record for you, saving you time and money. And really what's important is that it gives your organizations an automatic structure and process to your record keeping. Ultimately, and most importantly, producers don't have to be that manual link that connects all of these software systems together. They're already integrated, and you take on much more of a management role in using the software than actually as a key critical stress point in there. So on that, what we're going to do now is just shift into a brief demo. And what we'll do is we'll walk through how the MES system can help with your inventory, QA record keeping, inventory or reporting, and then some of their main functionality. So Elevated Signals is a web-hosted, cloud-based application, meaning that you can access the software anytime, anywhere, as long as you have a good internet connection and a way to go on the internet, like using Google Chrome on a tablet. So when you log in, you can get an overview of the locations in your facility. These are the areas in your facility that you grow and produce cannabis. Of course, this is all customized to individual facilities, but this is just our test account and active development account. So in the locations, we have our germination room, the propagation, veg, flowering, cloning, germination, trimming, storing, and drying, as well as some meta information about what's actually happening in there. So we have the number of environmental sensors that are in there, a list of the number of batches that are in that room, as well as the number of plants. On the left-hand side, a quick navigation bar to move throughout the facility. You can view your locations. You can also look at your cultivation batches. So a list of all of your batches that have plants in them, a list of your plants, your seed lots, cultivars, a list of your harvest work orders, which we're going to touch on a little bit later in the demo, as well as what the growth stages are in your facility. As well, you have access to view your production batches. So once plants have been harvested and are in the post-production phase, you can view the drying and general work orders, where teams can know the immediate production outcomes of any work that was done, as well as the production stages. We have our destruction lots, our quality headquarters, which we'll spend a little bit of time on in a bit, where you can view the master record library, the form builder, upload record sets, as well as look at any SOPs and SOP categories. As well, of course, important reports that actually extract the information and give you insights into your inventory, and that can be used for CTS, as well as just your facility settings. So in here, you're able to track the number of sensors that you're using, a list of the equipment that you have to log records against, the applicable products, printers, users, and then just your general settings. So what we can do is let's go back to the locations and then just jump into one of the flowering rooms here. So in the flowering room, first you get a high-level overview about what's actually happening in this room, the number of batches that are in here and the number of plants. As well, we're working on analytics to take the information from our quality forms and put them into usable insights for your facility. So understanding pathogen risk, pest risk, or crop loss. As well, you have the ability to display the environmental temperature. This is just in our test account, so we don't have any sensors going right now, but we do have environmental monitoring capabilities to look after temperature, humidity, CO2, and light detection, which we'd be more than happy to talk about later. As well, we upload a floor plan of your facility, so all of the work that's being done is contextualized, and drop a pin in that room where the specific sensors will be to understand any potential microclimates that might be happening in the room. As well, when we scroll down, we have the related items. So these are all the information that pertains to the actual location that we're looking at. We have the number of batches that are in here, a list of the plants, the sensors, as well as the records that are currently in here. So traditionally on a pen and paper system, you would print off a bunch of paper forms and put them in a file or a duotang in front of the room that you wanted to work on. And this is tough because you don't have really any operational visibility into what's being done on that room. You can't see, what tasks have been done by who or by when. All of that information lives in secluded binders. So in our system, all of the records that have been logged against the location are stored here in perpetuity. So at any moment, you can come in and see that you've done a biocontrol application in here, you've done sanitization against this room, and just provides a more comprehensive work history of all of that information that's been logged against this room. So what we're going to do now is just sort of walk through a little bit of a day in the life of using the platform. So I'm going to go to my cultivation batches. And on the cultivation batch page as well, you can see the batches that are in here, the strain, their growth stage, as well as the number of plants that are in here. If I click onto this batch here, get an overview on the batch page of the day it was created on, its current growth stage, as well as the location of it in the facility, as well as a running total of the growing times for this batch. We can see how long it was in cutting, in vegetative, and in flowering. Obviously this is a bit of an accelerated example, so these numbers aren't completely accurate. As well, you can see the number of plants, the total wet weight and dry weight once this batch is harvested, drying loss, and what the predicted yield for this batch is. So what we want to do is, as a grower, as the master grower, or one of the production associates at your facility, there's going to be a lot of crop and crop-related work that you're going to be doing to these batches and recording. So to log any of this information, you go to the Quick Record button on the top right-hand corner here. So our software provides the digital templates for you to record this information. And we've taken these templates from work with our customers to really glean industry best practices for the kind of information that you need to provide to Health Canada. In the same idea, producers don't need to spend time actually building these forms yourself. We know that there's a lot of guess and check work into what information is available when there's these out-of-the-box form templates that are available. As well, having a digital system really ensures that your staff are using the right form, because we've heard plenty of stories of staff, trying to save time. They print off 100 blank forms for the staff to use, only to forget to update them, and then the wrong forms are in circulation. So we provide the forms for producers to be GPP compliant. Of course, the ones that you need to have are sanitization and pest control application, but we provided a full suite of other forms that you can use to monitor and log your crop health. So things like biocontrol applications, you can calibrate the equipment that you're using, any specific audit forms. So let's actually just walk through one of these forms right now, and let's do a plant scouting form. So you just simply come in and click Use, and all of these forms are controlled data input forms, meaning that you can only self-reference either the locations or the batches that you have in your facility. So in here, I'm going to observe this plant health on a batch. All of my batches are pre-populated, and we're working on this batch of sour diesel here. So I'm going to select it, and you can multi-select. As well, here's a list of pests and pathogens that we have, any physical symptoms that we can have that might occur. You can write the incident level, the threat level, if a pest control application is required based on your findings, or if a biocontrol application is required. As well, you can put in a picture if you want to actually have a document of here. As well, you can add in the start time and end time of when this task was done. So this is when you get into a little bit more of productivity tracking. If you want to see what your staff are doing, or how long it takes them to do these specific tasks, or what tasks are taking a while, you can get that information from these forms here. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this form. And submitting the form is going to take me to the master record library. So one of the benefits of having an MES system is that it's going to provide immediate organization and structure to your team's record keeping. Having the records in a centralized place makes it easy to find, search, and filter through all of these records. You can filter by batch, location, type of record, or the start time and end time of a batch, or of a batch when the record was done. Go back to the records there, go to when the records were done. So if we click into the record that we just filled out, at any point you can always download a PDF copy of these records if you want to have a paper-based, or if the inspector asks for a paper-based. When you download the PDF of the record, all of the information that we just filled out on the form is going to be present. Here's the batch that we just filled out, a QR code that when you scan it will take you back to the batch page, as well as, here's the pests and pathogens that we found, any pictures, and who the task was completed by. So a big benefit as well of MES is that all of our forms automatically have the digital signatures on them. Health Canada requires that for forms to be complete, they need to be properly signed with the signature, as well as the date and time when this event was recorded. And honestly, more often than not, it's a very easy thing to forget is, but just signing off on those forms. So, taking away some of that second guessing and really giving your team that sense of confidence that all of your forms have been completed and are accurate. On the form as well, we do incorporate components of form version history. Mistakes happen, and sometimes just someone fills out the wrong information. So based on your permissions, you can come in and edit this form. Let's say I want to, I forgot that there is a little foliage discoloration in this batch. I can go down and save this record. And what we'll see on the side here is the edit history. So this provides an internal level of audit and quality assurance, because now as a QA manager or the operations manager, you can see which staff have come in and modified these forms, and what they did, and always that you're looking at the latest record. So traditionally, this would need to be, if you're using pen and paper, you would need to not only have an SOP for how you make the correction, but then also, scribble out the error, write your initials, the date, and sort of you're left with this very messy, untidy form that might be difficult to read or really understand what took place. So you can have more confidence with the edit version here as well. As well, depending on the level of quality assurance your facility is striving towards, you also have the ability to verify these forms. So as soon as this form is submitted, if Kylie and I were working together, she could come in and say, yeah, this inspection of plant health looks good, everything was done, and she can click verify. So verifying this form just informs your staff and then inspectors that this was done in accordance with your SOPs, that you've just given it that extra check mark. And now when we go to the actual form itself, we're looking at the most recent one. There's our updated foliage discoloration. As well, a new signature appears that shows the form verification on here. So as well, with this MES system, all of the internal audits are already provided there for you. Finally, with this record, if I go back to my cultivation, I'm going to go to my cultivation batch and go to the sour diesel. If I scroll down on the batch page to the related items and click records, there's that plant scouting form that we just did. So really the benefit is that it's providing this immediate structure and organization to your record keeping. Once you've spent the time filling out the forms, as soon as you hit submit, the form is already where it needs to be, against the location where it was done or against the batch where you filled out this information against. So that's just some of the functionality behind the forms as well. There are options to build your own and edit your own custom forms. So the next piece of information I wanted to show you was just focusing on work orders. So if we go to our harvest work orders, the benefit of work orders is that you have the ability to track the inputs, outputs, processing loss, and destruction all in a central location. So the digital work orders in an MES can also cover the work in progress and compliance simultaneously. The reason being is, if you're doing a process that might take multiple days, such as curing or drying, that batch still needs to have a compliance report associated with it. Inspectors can come in and they can still want to see, where is the location of this batch, what work has been done to it, or what tools are you currently using in this drying work order, for example. And you have the ability to quickly show them that in the central platform. So what we'll do is I'll just show you one of the harvest work orders in here. If I click into the Wonder Woman harvest that we did previously, again, on an MES, digitizing this process, you can see the location of this work order, have the immediate production outcomes of knowing, how many plants have been harvested, what the output was, what the output of fresh cannabis was, as well as you can log specific destruction events. So destruction is a major point where Health Canada auditors want to inspect. And during these processing related tasks, of course, there's going to be stems and leaves and foliage debris that needs to be destroyed, especially in a harvest. And providing this level of traceability in a work order can assure them that, this cannabis and this amount of cannabis has to do with this specific harvest event in here. As well, you can see just, production information, the day it was opened, and then the end date. On the work orders themselves, of course, we can track the number of the inputs, the outputs, but really what we want to show is also that there's equipment that's associated with this work order. So, Health Canada can come in and ask your team, show us the bucking machine that you use or the proper scales that were involved in this harvest. And of course, you can say, no problem, it's all in this work order right here. And then Health Canada can further request, all right, well, how do we know that it was cleaned? How do we know that it was calibrated? And in the work orders, you can also attach specific quality control records, those sanitization and calibration events those records that we were referring to the specific pieces of equipment in here as well. So if I download a PDF of this work order, on the work order itself, we'll have all of the digitized information in here, the input and the output, as well as what batches we were using, what the output was. But then we also list here the equipment that you were using, if there's an applicable serial number, when it was brought into the work order. And here are those records that we were using, the sanitization and calibration. And we actually go the next step in adding all of those specific records in here to the work order itself. So you can see even within these unique processing events, there's a lot of documentation that needs to go into it. It's not just focused on your daily work. The system really makes it easy for you to give structure and organization to the record keeping in here. So if I go back to the batch in here, I'm going to go to my sour diesel. Oh, wrong sour diesel. Perfect. So at any point, as a quality assurance person on staff, as a head grower or the COO, you have the ability to see and really gain an immediate understanding of what's been done to this batch. So on the batch page, you can go and look at the event log in here, and this will provide all of the individual line items of this batch, the day it was created, and who actually who has done this task. So if I was a quality assurance or just a cultivation worker, I can come in and see like, all right, this most recent plant scouting record was complete. It was done today, and I can confirm because the record is associated in here. Really where all of this information comes together is in the master batch record. So at any point, you can come in and download a PDF of this batch record. And what it is going to do is aggregate all of those inventory movements, quality control records, and the associated documentation into a single comprehensive report for you to show to Health Canada. So in this report, this is just a test report, from our batch account, from our sour diesel in here. So you can see in here that the batch is over 100 pages long and still growing. And what we do is provide full level traceability in this batch history. So you can see the day the batch was created here, the date and by who. Here's the plants that were added to the batch and through this mother batch in here. As well, we provide individual line items of all of those events that we were doing. So our sanitization records, the plant scouting records, any destruction records, they all appear on these first few pages essentially as an index, like a table of contents in a chronological order that was done for this batch. And if we scroll down into this batch report, all of these records are automatically associated in here. So we have our work order summaries in here, work orders for drying. Here's the destruction witness letters that are in here. All of this information just provides the full and comprehensive lifecycle batch history into a centralized platform for your teams. And you can see there's a lot of information that is communicated in these batch reports. And one of the benefits of having an MES system is that this digital system allows you to ramp up new employees quicker and really share that information among your teams, because you can give them the same information that your most experienced operators have had. You start a new day on a new job, and on the first day they just throw you the book. These are the playbooks that growers can use that quality managers can pass to their teams and that Health Canada audit inspectors can look at to provide and really understand what's happening on this batch. Finally, as well, in terms of reporting, all of the reporting in here can help you extract all of this information for CTS. In terms of what your monthly opening inventory is, you have the additions, reductions, and destructions for cultivation, and the same kind of information for your processing as well. So that's just a bit of a quick summary of what some of the capabilities that producers have been using our software for. One thing to note, as well with having a digital system like this is that it really provides your team with remote visibility and access. So we can see on this webinar, everyone here is joined remotely. We're now living in a little bit more of a digital world, and all of the information in terms of accessing your software, the records, can be done remotely. So we've seen, especially during COVID, but in the more recent weeks, QA processes can continue uninterrupted because the digital system allows for QA remote form verification for the destruction and sanitization and plant inspections for staff members on site. Operations teams can still process the batch releases and the CTS reporting remotely, and even growers can look in and check on their environmental conditions when they're at home. So yeah, just a few of the capabilities in here. I know that we've got around 15 minutes left. So with that, I wouldn't mind opening up the floor for any questions that people have, or if you don't want to speak, just please type out your question in the chat box on the right side, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Sorry, I have a quick question. My name is Steve. I know that there's a lot of complications around the CRA reporting that's also required, and a lot of similar information and data points that would be not looked at the exact same way as the compliance on the Health Canada Cannabis Act side. Is there any ability to transfer these records into any kind of financial softwares? Do you guys do that for any work, be it kind of stuff or through an API or anything?
Yeah, great question. So thanks for that question, Steve. So our whole software is actually built on an OAuth 2 API. So any of the information that you've seen in the demo can be connected and is accessed through the API. And that's actually a few of the integrations that we're looking at, is especially into the accounting software side of things. For our reporting functionality, we took a little bit of a different approach and didn't want to provide producers with this essentially black box of information where it just spits out a number, because producers need to see the inventory for different uses. So part of the benefits and the uses of this inventory are taking some of those plant numbers, seed numbers, plants in the different growth stages, and accounting for it in that CRA inventory.
Cool, thanks.
I have a question about the testing. So we have to do a lot of sampling, it's recommended that you do sampling from different plants and from your batch. So I'm just wondering how you capture that in your software.
Yeah, great question, Kylie. Maybe I can actually just walk through taking a sampling in here. So that would actually be done through a work order in here. So I go to processing and go to my work orders. What we can do is open up a sampling work order. In that example, would you want to do a sample from, let's say a moisture sample from this leaf in here?
I'm talking about for analytical testing. So you have to take out samples of the product, you'll take a couple of grams from one and take another couple of grams from another plant, and then you want to homogenize it so you get a good big sample for analytical testing. So I'm just wondering where you capture that.
Perfect. Yeah, so let's go into this batch right here. Pull some of the weight out through a work order. So I'm going to go into my work orders, create a new work order, and do we have sampling in here? I can open it up. And so doing a sampling through a work order, you can track the inputs, outputs, destruction, equipment, and the records. So if I open up the work order, the first thing we want to add to this history is probably going to be a scale to be doing with sampling. And then in the input here, we would add our source batch in here and take a weight from this fresh cannabis. Let's just say we're going to sample 150 grams. We could add it in here. And then for the outputs, this is where we're going to be converting this into what our sampling is going to be. So we're going to put it back in the same batch. This time we're just going to change the substance type into a lab sample, for example, in here. You can do ministry samples as well as internal, but let's just do a lab sample for now. And that weight will be 150 grams. And we can add it in here. We don't need to do any destruction, but let me just close this work order now. And if I go back to the batch page here, on the batch page, so we have a ledger of the fresh cannabis that's in here. We also can see that we have lab samples in here. So when you scroll down to the bottom, here's where we'd have an internal record of taking the weight out of the fresh cannabis, and here's the lab sample that we had just taken. If we want to send that lab, and then what I'll do is if we send out this lab sample for analysis, we can remove that from the inventory through a weight adjustment. So I'm going to look at my lab sample. I'm going to remove it from my inventory. And the reason is that it's going to the lab. And then when I add the adjustment in here, on the ledger page, you can see that now it just provides more of an internal audit trail because we can see we added this lab sample and then it was removed because it was sent to the lab.
Okay, so if you take out that whole sample and then, because you're not going to send the whole thing, you're going to keep some because you have to keep it for up to a year, I believe, for like auditing purposes. So you can separate that out then, or can you do it after?
So you could separate it out when you send it out, or you could just take another sample, and instead of a lab sample, it could be an internal retention sample.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We do have a question that came through on the chats. It says, can I see an example of how plant maintenance, such as topping, probably like defoliation and things like that, and nutrient management is done?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back now to our cultivation batch. We have our batch right here. So the plant maintenance, like topping, would be done through a crop operations form. In here, we can go on the top right and go to the quick records, and then we would scroll down to our crop operations form in here and select use. And here we can actually describe what crop operations tasks we're doing. So foliage stripping, plant staking, terminal pinching, trellising, this kind of stuff. So we would record that we did foliage stripping and maybe some terminal pinching. We can multi-select options. And here we can apply it to either a batch or a location. So, sometimes if you're doing it against a batch, you can highlight it against the one batch, or we can do it against the location. We'll do it against our batch here and say that the record was done here. So then we can just go, again, it will take us to our master record library where we can view the form, make any modifications or edit to it if we need to, come in and verify the form. And then if we go back to the cultivation batches in here, and scroll down to the bottom under records. Oh, I logged it against the wrong form. The record would be there. I logged it against the right one. So any of those tasks are just going to be done against in the digital templates here.
And so the addition of nutrients, I would assume, would be under the irrigation?
Yeah, so that form is done through irrigation in here.
Okay.
Where you can put in the irrigation, so you could do either a full location or a specific batch. So we can put our batch of sour diesel in here, who's completed this task, and really producers are going to write their nutrient formulations under the notes of what they fed that day, the start time and end time, and then submit that record in here. And then that nutrient formulation can be found under the batches page here. So just a comment from Earl, one feature you're excited to use more of the sublocations and tables feature so we can do more A/B nutrient tests between tables. Yeah, absolutely. So just further dividing up what is actually happening in those specific locations, you can go in and designate locations as sublocations of their other locations. So if you have specific tables that you want to monitor, or as Earl's doing, any testing, you can monitor that performance in the software.
Hey, Liam, it's Hardeep speaking. I think one of the other things that might be helpful to show everyone is also the form builder capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Hardeep. So with the forms in here, we provide these digital forms out of the box for you. But we understand, every facility is different, and some of these forms might need editing, or you want to just make all of your own forms as well. So you can do that in the software. If we go over to quality and we go to our quality headquarters and click form management, this is the area where we can edit the existing forms or build new forms themselves. So if I just go into one of our forms here, and I'll go into our sanitization form, this is the form view that it looks like in the quick record side here when your team or staff member is going to actually fill it out. What you can do is go in and open this form up in the form builder, and it really shows you the internal capabilities of this form. And you have the ability to, edit any of the features if you want to edit any cleaning, edit the location, and a common one we see is editing the activities in here. So making any modifications in this field view will influence what the view looks like in the form itself here. On the right-hand side, this is our data select area where you can really just have the building blocks to make these forms yourself. What we can do quickly is just maybe make a quick form just to show you how it's done. If I go to a new form schema and a form I want to create, let's just say is equipment maintenance. I'm going to create the schema, go into the form, and I can open up the form builder here. And all of the information on how to build these forms and use them is provided in our knowledge center and in our help articles. But I can start by just entering a text field in here. Go ahead and update it. And really some of the power that we can get from the forms here is through the self-selecting relational database nature of the program. So in here, we can type in the kind of equipment that we want to use. And what we can do is link this part of the form to specific data fields in the software. So I just labeled this area as equipment. And if I go to the data source, what I want this form to reference, I can scroll down to the equipments here. And if I update it on the right-hand side here on the form view that people will look at, all of the list of our equipment will be populating. So, you can self-reference that form, that information in here. And maybe I'll just put, for just demonstrating a quick checkbox, the label that the equipment was calibrated before use, so you can check it off if you want. You can also make any of the required fields here mandatory. That let's say you have to check that this form was done before use. what I'll quickly do is just save this form. And if I'm going to go to our facility settings and just update the side schema, if I go to the side menu here and go to the quick record template and scroll down, there's our equipment maintenance form that we just made, that we filled out. So I can click use, and then here's the equipment, and submitting that the equipment was calibrated before use. So using a MES system can really ensure, and like a digital system can ensure, that your team is always on the right page, using the appropriate forms, and that you can edit and have full control over the type of information that you want to be collecting in your facility. As well, you can also create any of these custom, Mark just pointed out, you can create any custom nutrient log forms using the form builder if there's any preferred forms that you would like to use.
I noticed on a lot of your forms, once they're populated and you go into a PDF, that you have a QR code. What's the purpose? What does that do?
Yeah, so the QR code, when you can scan it from the tablet, will just take you to the quality headquarters here, and will take you to the report page where you actually generated the form from. So if you do have a paper record and you just want to go back into the digital world really quickly, then you can do it through there.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Well, I know that we're just coming, the last 5 minutes of the demo. I'm not sure if Amar or Hardeep have any closing thoughts or final comments that you want to make, but just for myself, we really appreciate your time in allowing us to give this presentation to you. Really hope that we have the opportunity to talk further, learn a little bit more about your facility, and see how we can provide you any assistance. We'll follow up from this recording, or from this demo, with a recording, and then also we'll just send you some additional information about elevated signals, as well as our Health Canada compliance manual. So just something that you guys can take a look at, understand a little bit how we help producers stay compliant, mapping the MES capabilities to the individual Health Canada regulations. So that I'll pass it to Amar or Hardeep.
Yeah, nothing major further from me. I mean, thanks everyone for joining again, and Liam, awesome demo. But it's a lot of information to take in at once there. Once you get using it on a daily basis, then it hopefully becomes easier. Maybe Earl can attest to that. But that has been the goal, is to create a better user experience, user interface than was previously available. Get things off of paper that were previously on paper into a digital system. It's just going to make your life easier. It's going to make the data secure, because it's always backed up. If the binder goes missing for a batch, that could be a big problem. And with this, everything's backed up and secure. And plus, it's a collaborative tool, right? So we've got multiple teammates in a facility doing different things, different shifts. Maybe someone came in. It's kind of like patient handoff, right? If you don't know what the previous person did to your patient or your plant in this case, then things can get mixed up. So this, for us, it's how we operate. Just even developing the software, we use a collaborative interface for just in our daily work, and we want producers to have that same ability to see what everyone else is doing. Everyone's on the same page. It just reduces the chance for error, and hopefully helps you streamline your operations there. But again, a lot to take in, and we're more than happy to do one-on-one demos with anyone that wants to dive into the software further after. There's Liam's info to reach out.
I'm happy to give credit where credit's due. As a paying customer, we're incredibly happy with it. Our grower, who has minimal computer competency, figured it out within a matter of hours, and he uses it on a daily basis. As far as I could tell, we're 100% compliant, and as a customer, I couldn't be happier.
Thanks so much, Earl.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, everyone. And if you haven't signed up for the ACMLA organization, please do. We'll send Kylie's information in our follow-up as well, just to stay up to date with their current information, selling your products in Alberta, and just, what Kylie really has her finger on the pulse in the micro cultivation community. So a must follow on Twitter as well. So with that, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and looking forward to being in touch soon. My information is on the screen here, so if you want to take a quick snapshot or write it down, don't hesitate to give me a call or text me. Love when the phone blows up. So we will talk to everyone soon, and have a great day.
And I'll just say thank you so much to everybody who's joined in and with us today. And there's definitely more to come from lots of other companies, and probably some follow-ups with Elevated Signals. So I really appreciate you folks taking the time today, Amar and Liam and Hardeep, for coming online and giving us this information. I have personally looked at countless types of software to kind of shore up my operation. And just the compatibility with the CTLS system was what really sold it for me. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.